that the other night. I found I didn't turn down the first floor one, so I, yeah. Mrs. Kathy.
She looked at the agenda and said, yeah. I wonder how expensive it was.
Hey, Chief. No, he'll be here. Oh, yeah. Thankfully, you have your laptop with you. If we really need to get a hold of somebody, send a smoke signal through there.
There's an interesting statement I'm just reading here, that the SAV was paid exclusively by over 20 commercial property owners.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have no skin in the game?
Well, we can address that. We'll address that pretty shortly.
But you're basically a pass-through for the, really, Bingham Farms is a pass-through for the property owners. They pay the freight on it. I'm glad you're reading it. I think you might be the first, other than my wife, I think you might be the only one.
Well, I've read a few in the past.
Spell check came up like that.
And that's only because she had approved
She had to,
She had
yeah.
approved it, right, Chief?
Right.
There's canceled.
Hey, Kaz, how are you?
I think it's actually 27
Yeah, you can spell it
parcels
either
that-
way.
Yes.
Yeah. But some are multiple, owned by,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah, by the same owner.
By the same owner, yeah.
Yep. And it is a direct pass-through. And
Yeah.
it balances to the penny. What we build is what we received. And passed on to you guys.
Say 7. Oh, yes.
So are any of
Yes.
those-
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Of the 20 commercial property owners, are all 20 still paying their business licenses?
Well, those of them that have management offices in the village, yes.
Yes,
Because some of them own and manage a building, but their management office is not in the
elsewhere.
village.
It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Ken?
Yeah, do a roll call. Blackburn.
Present.
Hageman.
Here.
Hedge.
Here.
Howard.
Here?
Jones.
Here.
Craybill. Mashigian.
Here.
All right, you have a quorum of 6.
Thank you. I'd like to remind everybody to silence your cell phone. And as a reminder, this meeting is being videotaped, so if you step to our podium, you will be on our website and the local cable channel, because all comments are part of the recording. Next is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next is the approval of the regular council meeting minutes from February 26th, 2024. Is there a motion?
I motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next is public comments not on published agenda. Seeing none, we will move to our first discussion topic, which is the Police Department monthly report.
Well, good evening, everyone. Actually, the first thing I was going to mention was our annual report, which you all should have copies of. Ken was nice enough to put it online today on the village's website as well. And we have some extra hard copies in the lobby here if anybody in the village would like to get one. We have plenty at the station, too. You know, I appreciate you looking at it, appreciate you reading it. As you're going through, if you see any questions at all, don't hesitate to give me a call at the station. I'll be glad to answer them. The one thing that I do want to mention is the cover photograph. That picture is on 13 Mile, just west of Telegraph. It was during one of the major storms that we had early last year. And that photograph was actually taken by a Detroit Free Press photographer who saw our officer out there and just snapped that photograph. That's why it's so good. That's why it's framed so nice and everything. And she gave us permission to use the picture in our annual report, so it was really nice for her to do that. But we love that picture. It just kind of brings it all together. Those are power lines that go across 13 Mile and that are blocking the traffic from going down 13 Mile there. The other thing I wanted to mention to you, I really don't have anything in terms of crime to report to you that's not in the written report that you have. The other thing I wanted to mention was lots of personnel changes that are going to be going on here shortly. One of our senior officers, Kimberly Bonacorsi, who works midnights, you probably don't really know her because she works midnights and she has for years. She's retiring in June. She announced that she's going to be retiring and moving on. And so we're looking for a replacement for her. We've had a posting out there now for about 2 weeks. We had all of one application who we interviewed right away, and actually we do like that applicant, so we moved them into the background phase to see if they'll work out. But it's not exactly easy to attract people into this profession right now. So we're doing that. We also anticipate we'll have another opening when I retire that will create another spot that will open up in the summer as well. So if we can find 2 candidates right now, we'll hire them right now and bring them on and get them going. If we can find 2. We're recruiting at the police academies. In fact, tomorrow we'll be at the Oakland Police Academy. I'm sorry, not tomorrow, Wednesday. We'll be at the Oakland Police Academy recruiting there as well, trying to get some of the new kids that are coming out of the academy, although most of them are already spoken for, but we'll do our best there. We also lost one of our part-time officers, a guy by the name of Rich Jacobs, who had only worked for us for about 6 or 8 months, but he was an excellent officer, but he decided he wanted a full-time position with a busy department, so he went to Madison Heights, where he's going to be very busy. There's no doubt about that. So that's what he was looking for. So we're definitely going through quite a bit of change personnel-wise at the police department over the next few months. But that's all I have for you right now, unless you have some questions for me about either our budget or the annual report. I'm happy to answer them. Yeah.
I was in Florida, and my daughter called and said the crime is increasing again with the gangs. And can you speak to any
You're talking about the burglaries, the South American burglaries?
Yes.
Not in our area, they haven't been. Now, other states have been experiencing, especially in California, they're getting hit very heavily in California. We have not had, that I'm aware of, any area burglaries that fit the description of these South American gangs that are doing them. And I think I would have heard, because we participate in the task force that investigates them also. No, I don't think that's true for our area, but with the warmer weather coming, they may have stayed away strictly because their MO is that they hang out in the backyards of homes looking to see what's going on. They might not have wanted to do that when it was 20 degrees outside, so maybe now that it's warming up, maybe they'll show back up here again. So we worry about that.
Another area was squatters, if you would. People moving into a vacant house and having a lot of difficulty getting them out.
We've had a couple of those over the years. Actually, the most recent thing we had was with an Airbnb that overextended their stay and refused to leave. And it ended up quite a challenge for the actual owners of the home. They had to go through an eviction process, and then by the time that process ran out, the residents had completely trashed the home, causing thousands and thousands of dollars and stealing a lot of things out of it. So not so much with the squatters do we have that. We have had it. It's been several years ago, but we have had one where that happened, but we worry more about the Airbnb things than we do that. I don't know if there's Airbnbs in Bingham or not. There probably is. I know that there is 4 or 5 in Franklin where there have been some problems with that. Yeah.
Did you ever find out what happened to the wall? How it got knocked down? behind the office building, what was it?
Oh,
I can address that.
Oh, you can't, you know?
Yeah. We don't know what happened. There was
Okay.
never a police report filed with that. But I can tell you that
It's being-
cleanup is happening and that
Yeah.
it's being reconstructed. I was there today.
Okay, okay.
I was there today just to be double sure. I
Okay.
thought maybe someone would ask. But yeah, they have, no one filed a report. There was nothing. I mean, not with the police department or with our office. It was purely discovery.
So,
It's not a new issue. Actually, what's happened is in the past, snowplows have taken and gone really fast and pushed snow up against that wall and caused damage, and they don't realize it till the spring when the snow melts and you can see the damage. So is that maybe what happened here? I don't know, but that's what has happened in the past.
That happens with hedges, too.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. A lot of damage there, and a lot of ground damage as well. But yeah. I'm sorry, I cut you off there. I think.
okay.
Chief, you were talking about squatters. Is anything being done to new laws in place, or have you heard of anything, new laws in place to get rid of squatters or have more of homeowners' rights?
I have not heard of anything. Certainly nothing has come to the chiefs of police attention. I'm trying to think, 'cause I actually sit on our legislative committee for the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police, where we get together once a month and go over all of the bills that potentially affect law enforcement and make a recommendation to Lansing as to whether we think we should support them or not from a police chief perspective. I can't recall anything being sent to us that addresses that.
It seems like it's starting to become a problem, not necessarily here, but in other places.
Would really rely on residents calling and reporting suspicious activity there. If they see something at one of their neighbors' houses, please call us and we'll check it out and cut it off right out at the head there before it gets going too badly. But actually, over the years, the biggest concern we've had with squatters is in the buildings along Telegraph, where we, as you'll see from the annual report, every year we find lots and lots of open doors, and our night shift people that go and check all the doors. We had one individual, a homeless individual, that lived in one of the vacant suites there for 3 weeks that we threw out. And he even admitted to that. That's how long he was there. So he probably was there even longer than that. But nobody called. Nobody called us from the office buildings to report it or anything. Just saw it on the alarm when we were there once.
So if they don't break in, have they violated a law? Do they have to
Don't
actually
break in.
break through the door? They have to break the glass, break the lock?
Well, a break-in as a home invasion goes, a break-in can be just opening a door and walking in. There doesn't actually have to be a physical damage to a
Okay.
window or door.
Okay. And that way you can go in and
But the question
arrest
is
them?
what their intent is. So
Yeah.
if their intent was to go in and just live there, it's probably not a home invasion. It's probably just more of a trespassing complaint than anything. So you have to prove intent that they were going in there to do something illegal, like steal something out of it or whatever. Just going in there to live in it would not fit the home invasion statute, but it would fit the trespassing.
Even though they weren't invited?
Even though they weren't invited, right. But it would fit trespassing statutes, so we're happy to come out, like I say, if you know where that is. I'm trying to think, I think that one home on 14 Mile that's supposed to be demolished, just east of Telegraph, I think we had a squatter issue there within the last few years.
Probably.
It's been sitting vacant for I don't know how long, many years now, with the little bridge that goes over.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I think we did have a squatter issue there that somebody called on it, and we moved them along quickly. So, and they did not break in; they just walked in. I mean, they did not kick the door in; they just walked in
Yeah.
the locked door.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I keep dropping. Yeah.
Next is the manager's report. Ken?
Thank you. I have a couple things. Same as last month, I want to mention again that leaf bag collection doesn't start till April 11th, so please don't put your leaf bags out until such time. And the other thing is that in the packet, as well as on the website and over on the stand there, is a QR code with a little explanation. We are working with the state and the county to verify water service lines. So this is in relation to lead service lines in communities. Now, we don't have any of those here in this village, but there's a voluntary program involved with people confirming what they have exactly. And that's exactly what this is. So if you were to scan the QR code, it would take you to a website, and you could find your address on there, click on there, and through a couple of different tests, you can verify what your service line is. Like your service line is the line that carries the water from the water main to your home. It's interactive. It's kind of fun. And if anybody so wants to do it, they certainly can. It's simply a matter of scanning and uploading photographs of your service main. You're not going to find lead, but you would probably find copper, perhaps galvanized, but certainly not lead. And it's on the website right now for anybody. To my knowledge, nobody has actually done this unless your husband has. Oh, you have?
Yeah,
Oh.
I scanned, but I just didn't feel it was creepy to go down the basement last night. So I figured I'd wait until tomorrow when I have somebody in the house. I'll go down.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's real simple.
It is simple.
Yeah.
Your husband asked me about it too. I don't know if he's done it yet, but
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, it's kind of fun to do,
Yeah.
and that's what I have. Thank you.
So it's voluntary, but if nobody volunteers, well, then
We'll get a massive fine, Kurt.
no, I was wondering.
No,
if
just kidding.
It's just
It's
voluntary.
completely
you
voluntary.
don't
Yes,
have
it
to
is.
do
That's right.
We don't have to have so many people do it or
No,
anything like that.
no, there's no
All right.
quota or anything of that nature.
All right, thanks.
Mhm.
Thank you. Next is Economic Development Coordinator / Administrative Assistant report. You have any?
The one thing I wanted to mention that's on the report for people watching at home, hopefully, there is a really nice event coming up this weekend hosted by Oakland County SISMA. It's going to take place at the Oakland Executive Building, which is located at 2100 Telegraph Road up in Waterford. Or is it Pontiac?
In Waterford, yeah.
Oh, Pontiac Lake Road, I apologize. It's not
Pontiac Lake
Telegraph.
Road in
Yes,
Waterford.
it is in Waterford,
Yeah.
however. So that is the Spring Invasive Species Summit. It's open to the public. It is free to attend. There is lots of really nice resources that SISMA provides to all Oakland County residents. This includes covering information on invasive species of plants, insects, so flora and fauna, they cover everything. There is a flyer that's available on the website as well. It looks like this. It's got the whole schedule of events, and they do ask that people register before attending, even though it is free. So make sure you
I
follow
clicked
that
on
link and
that.
check it out.
I clicked on the registration, and it says we're not taking any more names right now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
In that case, you
We can
can
go.
contact Patrick Kniff,
Yeah.
who is the director of SISMA, and his email address is provided there as well.
Are you going?
I'm not sure what's going on this weekend. I'm sitting in on SISMA meetings all the time,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I plan on going to their in-person
We do have a
meeting
problem
in next quarter.
with invasive species.
Mhm.
Yeah, on Bingham Lane. I'm not sure about other streets, but we've
Which-
had several occurrences. In fact, my neighbor was so upset, he came over to my yard and took all of my buckwheat or milkweed or something.
Buckthorn.
But no, it was
No?
it was a plant, big plant. But he said it would blow over into his yard, so I said, oh, go at it. No, we have,
Buckthorn is an invasive species too, so.
it is.
Yeah.
They,
Our
wherever
community
seed drop, it
definitely has
grows.
it.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're still in communication with SISMA about having it's probably not going to be as extensive with all those guest speakers that are available at this summit, but we're working on getting somebody from SISMA to come out and host a similar information event here for the village residents. So
Idea, yeah.
more information to come on that. Other than that, I know we discussed a little bit about the business licenses earlier, but I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you. Next is the Fire Department monthly report. Chief is here. Hello, welcome.
Greetings. Can we talk about your basement first?
Sure.
I mean, we have that. I have a pen that's broken.
You need a pen?
No, I'm good. I'm good. So I think 3 items? Start with
Yes.
the fire report. So
With
the
the
fire
fire
report.
monthly report, then the budget request, and then the hazard mitigation.
Okay. Is in terms of the monthly report, you have a report. Our run volume remains steady at approximately 50 runs per month. I think we just finished run number 146 this morning, or 145. 3 runs, 3 hours, all in Bingham Farms. So congratulations, you made the cut. With reference to the run volume as it stands, or the report as it stands, starting a new software program that started March 1st. So my monthly report next month will be very interesting, but it will have a different flair to it. So I'm hoping to be able to get the contents that are important to pass on to the village in some sort of manner, in order, and I don't know what that will look like just yet. But I would also say with that, if there's any other information that you'd like to have listed in that, please let me know, and I will try and accommodate. Based on our prior runs, there is a section which we detail out runs between the villages, and that it includes residential and commercial. Starting this month, we are breaking that out into not only residential, commercial, but roadway. So that way you can see exactly where we are going for those areas that are covered by the tax base, i.e. residential, commercial, but those that are more transient in nature, which in this case, 13-mile Telegraph Road. We haven't had too many other issues around. With that said, and pending your questions, that will conclude the fire report. None? Great. Moving on to the budget.
Question.
Yes.
I'm looking at the smoke detector activation doing
Yes.
the function, and the same address had a call on February 2nd.
Right.
Another call on February 22nd.
Right.
So is there a faulty smoke detector, or do you play a role in trying to say, hey, why are we having multiple calls for the same reason?
Can you give me the street name?
It's 30925 Timberbrook.
So that would either be cooking or it would be contractors. So if we do, and I do try and follow up on the repeat calls. We've had within the condos in the past, we've had issues where the sensors do get old, and there's a sensor in each of the condos at the entranceway to the basement, which does have some issues over time with humidity because of its location in the basement. But I try as much as possible to keep up on that, because as much as I don't like false alarms, I really don't like false alarms. It creates an issue where people really, especially in a primarily volunteer department, don't want to keep responding. Boy who cried wolf syndrome type of a thing.
Is there any kind of lifespan on these smoke detectors, and is it constant across the brands? Or?
Absolutely, there's a lifespan. So the smoke detectors that are not professionally installed typically have a 5 to 10 year life. That includes carbon monoxide detectors. The ones that are professionally installed, i.e. they're monitored services, like in the condominiums, their situation would kind of warrant me to say, get a hold of your alarm company, have them come out and send someone. Because a smoke detector doesn't really detect smoke, it detects density of air. So if you're doing things like finishing the floors, sanding the walls, that sort of thing, that creates dust. The dust then goes up in the air and it can settle on the sensor. And the sensor can mistake that dust to be smoke. Same thing with density of air. So as a result, not only does it cause a problem where we get the false alarm up front, but then if you were to have a real fire, or that house was to have a real fire, the smoke detector might not detect it. So this is why I'm so almost insane on contractors that are doing work where the systems aren't covered, the detectors, the sensors. And covering them means literally covering them with plastic in the daytime, and when they're done at night, take the plastic off every day. If the sensor is covered in plastic, it would definitely not work if there's a real need for it.
Interesting.
So it's one of those things. Plus, if people are paying for the service, why should they not have the service? So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Okay. Next is the budget. So you have a one-page enclosure to your packet, which is the overall budget request. So first off is Ken educated me. This budget request is for the fire department. It is not just for Bingham Farms. This goes 50-50 split between Franklin and Bingham Farms. We do cover Southfield Township at under a different structure. This budget is reflective of the ask from the fire department to support our operations starting fiscal year 2024-2025, which is July 1st. We have seen a number of issues that have transpired with the villages, and excuse me real quick, let me digress for a moment. I'm joined also with one of our captains, one of our fire commissioners, and our treasurer, Rick Kozlowski, who lives in the village of Franklin. So the budget, going back to that, what we have found is our run volume is certainly not decreasing. It is increasing, and the majority of these calls are EMS related. We are finding, as in today, with 3 runs within 3 hours, we're not only seeing calls for residents in both villages, but we are seeing 2 of our calls today were in doctor's offices. So someone goes in to get checked out, they are having an issue, and it could be a doctor, it could be a dentist, whoever, we go to all of them. As a result, we're finding that the run volume is such that it is very difficult to sustain our staffing model. Our staffing model at present includes 4 firefighters, and plus myself. Our firefighters work 12-hour shifts, 7 shifts in a 2-week cycle, meaning that the station we attempt to staff with 1 person at a time. There is times during holidays and vacations and sick leave where the station is not staffed. And we are finding that the volunteers at present, some of them are quite active. Lieutenant Croyle, who lives in Bingham Farms, Lieutenant Johnson, who lives in Franklin, amongst others. We are finding that the typical volunteer who's coming into the department today is coming in and volunteering when they have the ability, not necessarily when I need them. Now, it's very important that we continue to maintain the numbers so that way we can have some depth when the time is needed. But the problem that we're having is that we just don't have enough folks. We have tried over the years, and we will continue to try to recruit. You've heard me talk about this before. At this council as well as the Franklin Council, we've had taken advantage of opportunities such as the Bingham Farms Family Day as well as the Franklin Labor Day parade to try and solicit volunteers. We just actually had our last fire over on Bingham Lane when that resident was gracious enough to provide lunch and bring his neighbor. I tried to recruit his neighbor. I don't think it worked out. The problem that we're finding with a lot of this is kind of a young person's game in terms of being athletically fit and able. But in Michigan, we're also faced with the certification and licensure requirements, which there is no difference in the fire service between a full-time paid firefighter versus a volunteer. Both are required to attend the same training. As a result, we are looking at not only putting someone in training for at least 8 to 10 months before they can actually support us, which is 4 hours on Tuesdays, 4 hours on Thursdays, and all day Saturdays, where a majority of people in a 2-income household or a household with children, they just don't have the time. We can't find the numbers, but we will continue to try. And as a result, this budget contains an ask with reference to personnel, not only full-time, but also part-time. And there is also a line item with reference to advertising and recruiting, which would be indicative of trying to upgrade our website to be more recruit or applicant friendly, as well as some other internet-based enhancements, like our goal would be if someone is searching us out or searching fire departments out and they're in our area, that they get a pop-up window of some sort that talks about us. We are certainly not alone in the fire service in terms of need. There are many other departments in the area, and I'm talking across the country, that are facing the exact same need. And as a result, we as a department, and I personally, have joined the National Volunteer Fire Council to try and figure out best practices in which to recruit and retain our staff. We presently have 30 staff, just by the way. So the budget does make a request for the addition of another full-time person starting in March. So it'll be Q3 of this fiscal year, plus the addition of funding towards our part-time staffing, which affords our volunteer members an opportunity to be able to do some work and get something for their time. Presently, our volunteers earn nothing. There is no mileage reimbursement. There is no supplies other than what we give them or provide to them, in terms of turnout gear and that sort of thing. We don't give them, they're not paid per call. They literally receive nothing for the service other than thanks and a dinner or let's see, we provide one dinner a year and we provide lunch at trainings. So this is not a job where anyone is going to be able to retire. The fire department also has no longevity costs, no post-retirement health care, so when someone leaves, they have left. Then it's full-time, that's volunteer, that's everything. We are alone in having volunteers with the City of Troy and with the City of Clawson. Those are the last remaining volunteer departments in Oakland County. And Troy is made up, although they're a large city, they have 10 full-time employees, which cover the leadership of the fire department, but each station in Troy is staffed with volunteers. So, other than that, we do have some other increases. A lot of that is reflected on the increased cost of doing business, of getting things repaired, of getting things maintained and inspected, and those costs have to be passed on. There is, we work in an industry where we have standards that are created by the National Fire Protection Association that are adopted by the state of Michigan, MIOSHA, to enforce on us, and although we are a private corporation, we are held to the same standards as fire departments under the new MIOSHA standard. So a lot of the things that we've been doing, we will continue to do. It's just that the costs are just that much greater because of the lack of labor, supply chain structures, and the cost of doing business. So I didn't want to take up too much of your time. I wanted to present this, and I wanted to present this with some background in that in my 25 years in serving as a fire chief, I have never done this before. It's always typically been provide the budget, have it approved, or create the budget, have it approved by the Fire Commission, and pass it on to the villages. This year, because of the ask, and the ask originally was higher than what you see there. The original ask was approximately 19.8%. Captain Kozlowski and myself and several others spent hours creating this. We held meetings with the Village of Bingham Farms, with the Village of Franklin, to go over each of the line items and explain everything about how the fire department operates, answer whatever questions. So that way we would be able to make sure that there was an informed decision to be made. And now, this is the first time in 25 years that I've stood up and participated in any kind of presentation of the budget, but I am always open to do that. And for those that have called, I am always open, regardless of whether I'm at the station or at home or away. As long as my phone is working and I can pick up, I will pick up. If I can't pick up, I will certainly call you back. But our ask is just, the need is there, and we want to work with the villages. We are your contractor, and we will provide the service as best we can with what we have. And when I put together a budget, the budget that I put together is not I don't look at this, because I work in government outside of here, it's not a wish list of, these are all the things we're willing to give up to get to the number where we're at. These are the things that we absolutely need in order to get the job done. We are there to provide the service, but we need your help in being able to provide that service. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to discuss. Yes.
So this number then will be covered by both Franklin and Bingham Farms?
Yeah, divide the number in half.
And what about SAD? Because you mentioned now you're going to offices on emergency.
No, SAD is a police department item. The fire department is not covered in the special assessment district.
So we just cover all their calls?
Yes,
We pay
because
for that.
they're taxpayers in the village
Okay.
as well.
Okay.
I don't think do you have any properties in the village that are tax exempt? like faith-based groups, things like, no.
Well, the school.
Oh, Bingham,
Yeah.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
Birmingham schools, yeah.
Yeah.
So we go to Birmingham schools probably, 2-3 times a year. There's not that many, it's a negligible number. I share with Chief Roberts, I think the number one property that we both go to is located next door to this building. And we're there pretty often. And that's what, when you had this discussion about the planned, the PUD, I was very, very nervous about that because
Yes.
comparable facilities were about one run a day.
I rarely pass Sunrise without seeing an emergency vehicle in their parking lot.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
It's
a
not
lot.
unexpected.
No, it's not. It's not. It's just that for the staffing model of a very limited number of full-time staff, supplemented by volunteers, and using a third-party EMS transport service.
Yeah.
We use Star EMS. They're based out of Pontiac. They have a satellite facility in 9 Mile and Telegraph. It's still very, very difficult. I'm finding, my observation, I should say, is that more people are using 911 in lieu of a primary care physician, which means that we're busy, and it can take 8, 10, 12 minutes at the extreme to get an ambulance. And us being geographically located where we are, we're fortunate. In the northern and western parts of Oakland County, there are departments that are turning to a full-time staffed EMS transport model, specifically because they're waiting 20, 30, 40 minutes for an EMS unit to transport. So we are certainly not there at this point. The goal would be with this other person right now is to augment the staffing that we have, but also utilize them to fill in sick time and vacations that are taken to try and create a continuous presence in the building, or continuous availability for initial response. So, yes.
The largest individual increase seems to be in per diems.
Yes.
How are per diems used?
That's for the part-time, that's for station staffing from the volunteers. So they're offered, at present, they're offered a per diem to staff the building, which would be, the goal there is to afford a second person at night in the station to be able to effect a response with 2 people. 1 full-time person, 1 per diem person. Whether they're paid or not, volunteer or anything, I don't look at it that way. I look at that as to train people, that they can use buddy systems to be able to work together when they're responding to an incident.
Do I recall that currently they're getting around $12 an hour, or something like that?
Yes.
Which is not very much.
So at this point, and that it's going to change, it has to. It averages $12 an hour, and they're paid as a 1099, which means that they're losing about 40% by the time you reduce federal state taxes plus the employer and employee contributions for Medicare and Social Security. So every other department is well in the $20 range, plus their W-2 employees. So, yes, thank you. So the numbers are going to rise just because we can't. It's very difficult to recruit when you're going up against other departments with similar programs and you're offering almost half of what they're paying.
And the other question I have is that the individual that you're looking to hire in March of 2025, they're only in for 1/3 of their salary. So the following year's budget is going to have another major hit
It will.
for the balance of their salary
will.
and benefits.
It will, and during our discussions with the villages, it was brought to our attention of other large expenditures or requests or needs, however you want to put it. And so trying to accommodate some of the other issues beyond the fire department, we came to the agreement to defer that hiring. It's not to say that numbers will ever go down. Will we try to find savings? We are trying in every area, but the problem that we get into is saving in one area, as an example, extending the life of a fire truck to get additional years out of it results in more things that are breaking down and higher costs to repair them. And so part of, if you'll notice the second line from the bottom where it talks about rolling stock escrow, that is an account that we created. We've had it for decades, where that is used for capital asset purchases. The idea is that when we need to replace a vehicle or maybe put a roof on the building, something, a capital asset, something that's depreciable, that we don't have to come to the villages and request any additional funding for that. It's worked very well. One exception 10 years ago where we didn't have enough funding, we took a loan out. We paid for that loan. But if you notice that the ask, we deferred an increase in that account to try and save money. But there's another page that we went over with the villages, which shows where we take those depreciable assets, those fire trucks, and we've updated a 20-year life, a 20-year span from this year through 2045 in order to be able to not get us to a point where the fire trucks are all gone and there's no money to fund them, because I would hate to go back to the villages and say, oh, by the way, I need $4 million because I have to replace a fleet.
How much does a fire truck cost?
Good question. Our rescue, which we were looking to replace, 2007, we paid $185,000. This time, $285,000 minimum. Ladder truck, 2014, we paid $925,000. That truck is $1.7 million. Pumper tanker, we paid $450,000 in 2003, $1.1 million to replace that. Our newest truck is an engine. We bought it in 2017 for $750,000. That truck would probably be about $1.3 million today. Part of our issue is the varied needs between the villages, plus a building that is built in 1959, which was built for fire trucks then. It is not built for fire trucks today. So every truck that we get, it's not like what color is it or what kind of bells or whistles. My first question is,
Does it fit?
Will it fit? And so when I go to look at fire trucks, they hate it because I will call up, measure the distance of the arch, every foot, starting from the end to the middle. And we specifically bought the ladder truck we did. It's a great truck, but on the back end, in lieu of a pedestal, it has a fold-down seat. That control is required by an FPA, but had it had a pedestal, we would have had to taken the arches off the front of the building. The building is 60-some years old. Taking the arches off could have been an absolute nightmare in terms of what we found. In other words, the arch comes off in a straight line across, and new doors. And I spent weeks of insomnia hoping that I didn't have to touch the actual facade of the building for that purpose. But a new building would be somewhere around $8 to $10 million. So it's a lot. It's a lot to think of. Sorry. Yes.
What's the expected life of these trucks?
Great question. So years ago, fire trucks lived for 20 years, and that was changed because no one could afford to replace every truck every 20 years. Now, as long as the truck is maintained and inspected, certified annually, it can stay as long as it can. The exception would be medical licensed vehicles. Those have a 30-year lifespan. But typically we find, as in our rescue that was purchased in 2007, there's no parts available on the OEM side. So we're literally, the last piece that we went was aftermarket through Amazon is where we got our parts for that. And it was a brake switch. Our ladder, we just updated the schedule for replacement. Our rescues are at about 15 years. 15 to 18 years. The engine is probably 20 years. The ladder truck, I think we put at 29 years. And the tankers are 26, 27, something like that. We've extended them, bless you, we've extended them over time. We are fortunate, I'm going to pay for this statement, we're fortunate to have run volumes unlike cities around us, where we're running them constantly. So just as fire trucks or any vehicle that starts cold and gets push on the gas and climb up a hill, that does damage. Fire trucks that sit and are idle, that causes damage as well. So we try and keep things going, and what we don't have in terms of like our pumper tankers, they don't see a lot of service, so you will see people driving them. They'll take it on 696 and they'll drive not to Novi right now,
Yeah.
but maybe they'll go east because of the traffic, just to get the fluids running through the engine and all the built up, carbon.
So Franklin doesn't, do they have fire hydrants?
No,
Yeah, they have no water.
no, they don't. Individual wells.
So you've got to, it's the tanker.
It is, and everything that we purchase, there's a dual benefit. So meaning that Franklin, we have 2 trucks where Franklin uses the water, but those trucks have fire pumps on them. So Bingham Farms uses the fire pumps. There's a rating agency called ISO, or the Insurance Service Office. They are a service that goes to every fire department in the country that will have them, and they're rated between a 1 and a 10. 1 being a department that supplies anything and everything with lots of numbers. 10 has literally nothing. And when they come out and they rate us, they look at the community and they say, based on the communities you serve, here's what you should have for a full complement. With Franklin and Bingham Farms, with Bingham Farms having 4-story structures, with Franklin having 2-story structures, but no hydrants,
Yeah.
2 engines, a ladder truck, a reserve ladder truck, and a reserve engine. So we do have with our 3 engines, 2 of them being pumper tankers, Bingham Farms has afforded the 2 engines plus the reserve. The ladder truck goes to both villages. We don't have a reserve ladder. But we coordinate with the Village of Beverly Hills, so that way their ladder truck counts for ours.
Good. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to thank you and your treasurer and the rest of your board members for coming to us as early as you did with this request, because as you mentioned, the original proposal was like 19.8%, and that's just as you realized, obviously, that's just a big swallow for us. And I also want to thank you for reducing it and spreading it over 2 years, like you're willing to do. And I don't think you mentioned that's probably like just under 13% this request, and that helps us a lot. I think 128,000 divided by 2 is like $64,000 extra to us, and if I'm not mistaken, that's about 0.3 mils. I think 1 mil is $200,000.
Just under 200,000.
Yeah, so about 0.3 mils, and that's a lot easier for us to manage, I think, than it would have been the other way. And I'm appreciative of everything you've done. I just didn't want that to go, unsaid. And it's not like we think you're wasting money or anything. We don't. I'm confident that you guys are doing everything you can to keep the costs down. I guess I have a question, and that is, other than your fire department board meeting when someone from Franklin was there, have you been able to get a hold of them at all and contact them at all to see what their thoughts on this? I know you were having trouble getting a hold of them.
We had one meeting with the Village of Franklin, which included their council president and the village administrator. We had asked for additional opportunity, just as we did the same with Bingham Farms, to meet with any other council members to make sure that not only the message gets across, but I think it's more important to have an understanding of the services we provide, how we provide them,
Right.
and what we did on our 2 meetings here, what each of those line items mean.
Do you get the feeling that they're going to be okay with the 12.9%, or are too early to tell? Or?
I mean, I'll let you speak.
I don't anticipate any issues with them.
Okay.
In that regard. Franklin, the dynamics in Franklin, I don't know how it's set up in Bingham Farms, because you have the large commercial district. But just to kind of put it in perspective, Of course, everything's based on ad valorem and property values and such, but if you take Franklin's share of the budget that we're requesting for them, and just divide it equally over the 1,100 or so structures, I mean, you can do the math. That's about $525 a structure per year for fire and rescue service. That's definitely a burden. I don't know how that works out in Bingham Farms because there's fewer residents,
Right.
but again, you have the districts,
Business.
Whole commercial.
districts,
Yeah.
how that works.
And
Thanks again.
And Franklin just also is they have a dedicated fire millage. How that's working, I'm not sure, but I would think in the next couple of years they need to start thinking about some sort of a millage.
I just wanted to echo what Trustee Jones said. I really appreciate everything you guys have done. I was out of the country during your first meeting, and you graciously came back and spent about 3 hours with me, going line by line by line. So we understand that, you know, these aren't wants, these are needs, and we understand that. And we just appreciate you, you know, kind of pulling back on some of it for us, because this year, unfortunately, we have two big projects coming at one time with the roads project that we're still trying to figure out how to, you know, that's a heavy lift. So we're still trying to figure that out. So this, on top of it, just was going to be really difficult for our residents. And so thank you so much for working so diligently on this. I appreciate, I know we had a meeting as well, came back again and had more of your members show up and spend more time with us to sort of talk this through and help us understand. So thank you for doing this year. I do think council and the residents need to understand that this is just sort of a gift. Next year, we are going to have to make up the rest of it, and then very likely there will be costs on top of that. So this is more of a delay, a pause, to help us move forward with our roads project and spread things out for the residents. But this is a cost that's going to continue to go up, just like the cost of everything else. This isn't the only thing. We have a lot of other costs that are going to be going up as well. So next year, we might have to get more creative on how to start paying for some of these significantly costly things. But at least you coming early this year gave us time to sort of digest it and understand it and go over it. And then you guys coming back by lowering it just was very much appreciated. So we understand you're in a position.
Yeah, we work together.
Yeah.
We're glad to support. We're glad to be here. Given the opportunity.
And we love the service. I just want to make sure that is clear. We, our residents love it. Council loves working with you all. It's a great partnership. So we're going to do everything we can to preserve that working relationship just as long as we possibly can. And this is a huge help. So thank you.
Thank you.
You know, as I said at our meeting, and for the benefit of everyone, if we could get 10 volunteers from the Village of Bingham Farms who are qualified and 10 volunteers from the Village of Franklin who are qualified, that would make things a heck of a lot easier on everybody. But the reality of the situation is the situation.
Right.
You know, so we have to working together, deal with it, and do the best we can to make it happen. So thank you very much for your support.
I don't know if there's any further
Just
comments.
two things. You can't retire yet, because we enjoy having you here. We really appreciate it. The second thing is, and I know it's not very much, but also being on the cable board, have you looked at them for some dollars? Pardon
Every
me?
year we do.
Okay.
And I'm glad I know someone who's on the cable board.
Oh, darn it, I said.
I submit our letter every, I think it's June or July,
Okay.
to cover the cost of internet access. With the changes in the technology needs, our
Phone also, you might try that too.
we've done okay. I know we've done historically it's been internet, and I know now we've increased with this new software reporting. with 2 iPads.
Okay.
So there's 2 additional things. We're going to be having to change out the old school flip phone with the smartphone on the end of our trucks.
Yeah, there's still some money left,
So,
so,
yeah, no, I really appreciate that. I do. We actually put in for a grant, speaking of money, through the Assistance to Firefighter Grant Program. We put in for a grant request for a rescue truck. Odds are slim, but someone has to win the lottery.
yes,
So.
every now and then.
And then we put in Nutella Corporation, the same group, has put out a grant for several, I think $4,000 or $5,000 grants to the National Volunteer Fire Council. That we also we applied for one of those as well.
Okay, good.
For firefighter medical, and then we were a recipient of a MyOSHA My Wish grant. It was a matching dollar grant that we used for personal protective equipment. So we were able to get $5,000 out of that. So we are trying every which way we can to offset the costs.
Sounds good.
Thank you for your detailed
Sure,
explanation
sorry.
and description.
10 minutes turned into much longer.
No
That's
problem.
okay, that's okay.
Apologize.
It's all good information.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Appreciate it.
this will give us time to digest everything before
Okay.
the budget committee starts working, and now at least we have some numbers to work off of, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Next is the hazard mitigation plan. This will be a resolution.
Okay.
Do you
This
want
is,
to introduce it?
The majority of communities in Oakland County, by virtue of population size, are a part of the Oakland County Emergency Management Program. The Oakland County Emergency Management Program is intended, and it's staffed with personnel that are there just in case of disaster. Part of the requirements of being an emergency management program is to create a hazard mitigation plan. There are a number of communities in Oakland County, actually all of them. The only communities that I know that have their own emergency management system is Bloomfield Township, City of Southfield, and Troy. City of Troy has their own. Every one of these communities is required under federal, I'm not going to say law, but the carrot is you do it. The stick is if you don't do it and there's a disaster, you get no money. So I believe it's 5 years, there is a mitigation plan that's created. This plan is ongoing. This is not new to Bingham Farms. I was representing Bingham Farms the last go around. And basically what happens is there are meetings where village elected officials, fire, police, and whatnot, our DPWs, are invited to participate in the plan to determine what the needs are in the community, what is being addressed towards those needs, and kind of assigning it more or less of a priority without using those words. So with Bingham Farms, we have severe weather, we have transportation type incidents in Telegraph Road, we have electrical grid issues, we have things like that. The intent of this plan was to update those current hazards with any new hazards and just apply what is being done. There's no requirement for funding, there's no requirement for action unless the community decides that. But once the plan is done, once there are resolutions from all the communities that are represented and the county signs off on that, then that gets filed away with the state, and i.e. through FEMA. So that way, if there's a problem in the future and this was covered, there may be some mitigation funding available. This isn't for private homes, this is for public infrastructure, for road systems, utilities, that sort of thing, public buildings and whatnot. So what we've done is we participated in the program with every other community. The report is hundreds of pages long. Ken said he would pass on the web link so that way you could have access to it, with the thought of just giving you the idea of here it is, here's what it does. You can take the time to read through the plan. Bingham Farms is listed in the plan. And then next month, finalize or consider the resolution towards adopting that plan. Once the resolution is adopted, I'm assuming it will be, but once that is done, then the village works directly with Oakland County to deliver the resolution. And this is the same thing that Southfield Township did last Tuesday. Franklin will be putting it on their agenda for April 8th. So all of the communities will sign up. And again, this isn't anything, there's no hidden, the man behind the curtain thing with, okay, sign today and it's going to cost you $1 million tomorrow. This is literally just identifying the hazards, what you're doing, what we are doing to address those hazards, and just noting that they do exist. So.
Your action is not required today, in other words. I didn't want to include 500 pages of documents in the packet. So it's here, it's on your radar. You can pass a resolution if you want, but if you would like to look at the link, and then pass it next month, that's acceptable.
Do I understand that we're just reauthorizing it, that we've been in it before?
You are currently, the Village of Bingham Farms is currently in it. This is just an update, it's a new and updated plan based on the exact same requirements. So, but again, timing is not critical. It can wait a month if you want to look online and see how the village is listed.
Ken, have you had a chance to look at it?
I have. Yeah, I would defer to Tony. I have. It is, there's a lot of stuff, and it's thick. I can't say that I'm schooled in it.
Right. Does it, I'm just not sure why we want to wait, to be honest with you, but, I mean, are there additional responsibilities that you would have to undertake or anything like that?
No. I can't think of a reason why you'd want to wait, but if you want to see the link first, that's acceptable.
I would prefer we do it tonight, only because the other communities are in process, and we have the expert who's, looked at it. Yes. You're more of an expert than we are. I don't think we're going to read hundreds of pages and come up with anything that hasn't been.
I have a hard time doing the dishes. It can wait. It really can. The first chunk of this is about the planning process and what the plan is going towards, and then each community is listed. So I think some of the hazards that we have, Telegraph Road, severe weather incidents, including tornado power loss.
Really don't have any
flooding
concerns here, too.
We list those things. I know in Franklin there's the issue of Franklin Road with the gas station next to the fire station. Pretty basic stuff.
So when there is an event, this plan gives direction on how to respond?
No, not at all. That's a completely different plan. That's the emergency management plan that Oakland County has. What this plan basically does is it says these are the known hazards in the community. If there is a presidentially declared disaster, which opens up funding for the response, it also opens up funding for mitigation. Meaning, as an example, the village offices are in a private structure that you lease, but there's no generator here. So if there was maybe there is a generator, okay. So without having a generator, should the power go out, the village government would be stymied, we'll say. You get into there's kind of a weird situation because it's a private structure, which mitigation funding is not intended for. But perhaps there could be something created to, and I hate I'm even saying it because it's a horrible idea, move the village government over to Bingham Farms Elementary.
Yeah.
The last place you want to do anything is in a school.
Yeah.
I can talk about that from experience, but the funding is intended to do that. From a flood perspective, with the tributary of the Rouge, if you had a road that was a Bristol Lane, if there's a big flood event and the road gets washed out, there could be funding to say, we'll redevelop the road after the disaster, or we would like to, but we have no funding to develop a wash basin or a catchment, or put a big culvert in to allow that water to go through. If you can't afford it now, maybe there might be money later. The emergency management plan is in terms of response, This is something where you start seeing the village manager and the head of the council having powers to declare emergencies. Those are for financial reasons, political reasons, as well as practical reasons in order to get support. And that opens up a different, I could talk for hours on that, but I don't want to.
So this is money coming to us, not going out from us.
Well, it's kind of both. It's money that, it's saying that there's a problem, and money going out could be the village is going to address the problem. As an example, your roads. You have money going out addressing the roads.
Correct.
In terms of engineering and labor and surveying and things like that. Should there be a disaster and you weren't able to fulfill what you wanted to do, maybe there's money coming in that could be allocated towards the roads. But you'd have to have a natural technological
disaster.
hazard associated with it, not just where.
So it's not something we're paying into, i.e. insurance kind of idea?
No.
Okay.
No, but it can wait a month if you want. There is no rush.
There seems to be, in our village especially, a huge number of overhead utility lines entangled with shrubbery,
Yes.
everything else. And how does that,
That does not really fall into this. What you end up seeing is Detroit Edison. So you have different layers of wires. The very top are Edison. The second layer is Edison. Then you start seeing cable lines and fiber optics, phone lines, that sort of thing. Detroit Edison has a really big program to trim the trees.
Yes, they do.
You get into the left side that says, one side that says, we're going to trim everything from the ground up, and then you have another side that says, don't touch my trees. And I don't care that they're dead. You get into those issues. Now what Edison does is Edison will trim the trees in certain characteristics for only their wires. They will leave the wires, or they'll leave any kind of debris around the lower hanging wires, i.e. AT&T and Comcast. So everyone is responsible for their own utilities. And that's a big political issue, especially with trees. But that should be done, the intent with Edison is to get out there now to trim trees so that the storms that are coming won't impact the wires. The problem is there are so many trees.
would there be money to put the utilities underground?
I'd love to say yes, but it's a very expensive endeavor. I know we had, when we updated the fire station, we renovated it in 2004, we had the wire run, we had to put in a pole and put the wire underground, and it was a $20,000 bill that was on one property. So putting the wires underground at this point would be very, very expensive.
I have a house in Troy and a house here in Bingham Farms, and whenever I come back every month from Florida, my lights are all flickering.
Yeah.
There was a power outage. I have more power outages
Yeah.
in Bingham Farms compared to my Troy house, which barely has one a year, if that.
Right.
And here I have one at least once a month, if not more.
So there's a bigger part with the, God, I'm so sorry to do this. There's a bigger part of the electrical grid. So when you think of power, don't think of it as a lamp where you plug it in the wall, and if there's a problem, it's between the wall and your lamp. The electrical grid has an issue where, we just saw this 2 months ago, where there was a fire in a underground vault in Southfield at 12 Mile, which resulted in the power being cut. The fire wasn't the issue, but Edison had to cut the grid off in order to safely enter the vault to perform the repairs. So typically, when you have one wire down, there's another direction where it's feeding from. So I would say if you were going to ask the question, which I don't know the answer, the question really needs to be, get me a grid map. So that way you could see, as a village, where your power is coming from and how large is that grid. Because it's not just in Bingham Farms that's impacting Bingham Farms. It's similar to water. You have two ways of getting water into this village. I won't say where those valves are on TV, but if one area gets cut off, then it requires someone else to open up another valve to get water in, which could take time. If both of those valves are cut off, you could be without water for an undetermined amount of time. So this is all part of infrastructure issues which plague the entire country. Aging infrastructure, lack of funding towards maintenance. And then you get into the old school AT&T copper phone lines, which should have been gone 6 years ago, which are still around.
Would you like to pass this resolution now, or do you want to wait a month?
My
I'll
preference
pass
would
it
be to
now.
do now, but,
I'd like to pass
Yeah.
it now.
I would go along with that.
okay, I move the resolution on materials.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Is there further discussion?
All in favor?
No, I gotta do it. I
Sorry,
gotta do a
sorry,
roll call.
Oh, it's a roll call?
It's getting on my list.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Blackburn,
Yes.
Hageman,
Aye.
Hedge,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mashigian,
Yes.
Craybill, for the record. All right, that passes. It's approved, 6-0. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll get this taken care of, and I'll get a copy over to you as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you
I
very
appreciate
much.
both coming tonight.
Thank you.
Good night.
Sorry,
I
my
should say all of you.
10 minutes.
It's all right, Tony. We'll talk soon.
Goodbye.
I'll have to look into this grid map. I didn't know that was available. Let's see if I can get one.
We have one item under old business. That's the Road Project Advisory Committee update. Trustee Jones or Trustee Hageman, if you could just update us on what the happenings with the Roads Committee.
You want to go?
I just have a couple things. One of the things that they wanted council to give the road commission was a guidance as to, and I'm not quite sure I understand it, but did they want, there's a phaser rating that's out there, and the majority of the roads run from 4 to 6, from fair to poor. Is there a particular phaser rating that this council would like them to consider, or is there any other, I'm not stating this quite right, but does that sound about right to you?
I think you're doing okay. There's concern in terms of like understanding more what we, the council, are looking for.
Are looking for.
And just to review the phaser ratings, 1 to 3 was the roads are in poor condition, 4 to 5 fair condition, 6 to 7 good, 8 very good, 9 to 10 excellent. And they're saying like, do you want us to, come up with a plan that puts the roads all in the excellent category, or are you satisfied with good, or what? Because that will determine a little bit how much has to be done with the roads.
Yeah.
Right.
So this would be, I think, helpful to the members of the committee in terms of like what they should be focusing on. So they came looking for our direction on
Right.
that.
Because a phaser of 3 to 4 would be patch and seal and so forth, whereas you start getting a little bit more than that, now it's more
Right.
grind and fill,
Right.
which takes more money.
And 10 being excellent would mean, keeping the
Brand new
roads,
roads.
keeping the, like just building them every year,
Yeah.
pretty much. So I mean, my impression, but I didn't want to speak at the committee meeting because I'm not the council. I'm just one person. But my opinion would be like 5, which is the best fair rating, or 6, which is the lowest good rating, would be probably what we would be hoping for.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to speak without the council having.
What kind of life would a fair give the village? If we put our roads into a fair condition,
Yeah.
would we have to come back to the residents in 10 years or 15 years?
That's a really good question. And part of it depends on what the plan is, I think, because the consultants, it's Hubble-Roth, right?
Hubble-Roth and Clark.
Have indicated that one thing we could do is we could spend $150,000 a year that would lengthen the lifespan of the roads.
Isn't that our budget? What is our budget per year
Well, our budget for a year, we save $150,000 a year
for that?
but not to actively update the roads every year. Like we had one incident I know where we had to do more than just filling potholes, but this would be like an active program to more actively, I think, than we're doing now to like fix those. And basically our $150,000 that we budget each year would be immediately put to like keep the roads updated instead of saving it to like redo the roads.
Yeah, and I think part of somebody put a plan together, and it was to have at least twice a year inspections, like in the fall before going into winter, and then in the spring, when you've had a really bad winter, freeze thaw, and what it does to the roads, to come back again and inspect them and manage them that way. And one of the assumptions was we could get another, right now we're averaging 20 years of the roads.
Right.
If we could get another 10 years out of it, because we continue to monitor and to do preventative maintenance. And a part of that is going to be the water runoff, that we improve that as well, because that is one of the biggest factors of road destruction. So I think they're coming up with some feasibility things that we could have to discuss. One of the issues was I asked Bill 3 weeks ago after a meeting if he was going to begin doing assignments so that the committee members knew that in the next 2 weeks, this is what we're going to come back, what we're going to discuss, and what they needed to investigate. And he said, well, there's really no rush. There's no date that we need it by. I said, well, if there's going to be an election, we need it by probably the beginning of May, so that we have time to study it, to read it, to discuss it at a meeting, and turn it back to the committee if they need to massage it a bit, or we need more information before we actually vote on it. So he wasn't aware of that. And so he said he would be as timely as possible in getting the committee to come to some decisions. But I think there's, he mentioned that maybe this is the meeting this week, they were going to discuss the proposal and see where that fit in the whole scheme of things.
There's a number of proposals that are going to be discussed, and
Good.
I think, and again, I think this, as Kurt was saying, very important as to where this council seems to think where should the roads kind of maintain. To answer your question, yes, if we can keep them up to, let's say, a phaser rating of 5 or 6, they'll last a while. A good road is going to last maybe 25 years.
So a phaser rating would
That's an
be 10
assumption.
years?
That was from HRC.
But that's still an assumption. We don't know.
Well, some roads will last longer than others,
Right.
just because of the drainage and everything else.
Exactly.
So,
There was considerable discussion at the committee meeting in terms of like how long, if we do the $150,000 a year program, how long will it last?
yeah.
You know, and one person seemed to think it would last forever. My impression was that the HRC people just weren't willing to give us like a firm, you know, it'll last 5 more years or it'll last 10 more years. They weren't willing to say that, but just we know that it would last quite a bit longer if we
Yes.
did the maintenance.
So if we get a 5 rating, can we talk about 10 years? Is that fair?
You know, I think you'd want to ask HRC that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't feel comfortable giving an answer because I just don't, you know, I'm just not an expert on
Yeah.
roads.
Especially if they can't give us an answer.
If we go to the village for anything, we can't go back again in less than 10 years, in my mind.
Right. I think you're right. I think if you got to like a 5 or a 6 and did a maintenance program, I think it would probably last another 10 years. But that's Kurt Jones, who really doesn't, you know, I mean.
Yeah.
But do we know, what are the ratings of roads in Beverly Hills? What are the ratings of roads in Franklin? You know, are they, we can learn from our neighbors. Of course, Franklin just did a big road project not that long ago, so their rating is going to be much higher, but
They did one road through the middle of town. I drove through Franklin today, and they're abominable.
Well,
some of the neighborhoods.
they redid the neighborhood roads.
Not all of them.
Well, they were supposed to. That's the, yeah.
I think right now our roads are mostly 3 and 4, like on the borderline
Yes.
between poor and fair. And I mean, my opinion is, the other thing is like, if you're shooting for 9s and 10s, then it's going to have to be that the longer-term rehab cost figures, which, if you remember, were substantially higher than the selective rehab cost figures. And so I would be happy to have them like borderline between fair and good, and like try to maintain them at that level, as opposed to like
Absolutely.
Yeah.
spend the money to
Because we
go to
still
9s
have
and
freeze
10s.
thaw, and some years could be hellish even on a new road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and that's kind of answers your question is, how long can we guarantee they'll last? They can't, just because of the weather. If you have a mild winter, the roads are going to last a little bit longer. If you have a lot of freeze-thaw, that's havoc to the roads. And some roads in the village, for instance, Bristol Lane, gets hit much harder than, let's say, Bingham Road.
So is like 5 or 6, is that?
I think that's fair.
Is that?
Because I was thinking between 4 and 6. You know,
I was thinking the same thing, even 4, 5, or 6. And I think a lot of it depends on where it is and the severity.
Because right now, a lot of them are 3 to 4, but I think you do crack seal and patch some of the larger areas, that now rises up to a
Yeah.
5.
Yeah. Good point.
Okay. So that's, we can tell them, you know,
Yeah.
5 or 6, maybe 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of it is the traffic on a particular road, like if it's Shagwood or Old Orchard, where it's really not heavily trafficked, it's primarily people that live on that road.
Yeah.
Right.
That maybe a 4 is not at risk of being impassable at any time, you know?
Right.
So I think we have to look at all those factors when we're thinking
Right.
about it.
Yeah.
But this is a way of literally saving millions of dollars in the near future by
Right.
putting together a structured maintenance, inspection, and repair, preventative maintenance repair program.
Right.
But
Yeah, that's certainly one of the things that we are looking at. Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
So
What you were
then,
going to say?
No, I was going to say a couple of different things. When you're talking about PACER ratings, are you talking about bringing every road up to a certain standard, a certain number, or are you talking about a village-wide average? That's, you could say we want every road to be a 6, but that will always be rolling. That'll always be changing, and it's or you could average all the roads out. You had a couple that are reconstructed
Yeah.
and they're really high.
And that's why I'm
High
saying
numbers.
4 to 6, so it could be anywhere within,
Okay.
any particular road within that
All right, so
phaser.
so that means that some roads are going to have a delayed.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. All right, so that'll definitely happen, and you're going to the maintenance dollars will be probably
Yeah.
spent.
We certainly understand that, yeah,
Okay.
it's
But that doesn't mean that
Not-
we can't be building the fund for the future today.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, that's the point.
And that's
It gives
the
us
point.
time.
It gives us time to build the fund.
because nothing
We're not
is,
going
yeah,
crazy.
nothing's going to
The
happen
fund
until 2025 anyway, so.
The fund will not build as quickly if you're
interesting.
spending dollars on if you're spending only what you take in on maintenance, the fund will not be built as quickly as if you were to.
Unless there's a millage increase that is primarily for the purpose of building.
Well, I'm not suggesting that.
No, I know.
I know. I'm just saying that's not my official
not at all.
recommendation right now. 'Cause, you know.
But you
yeah.
got to get the money from someplace if you want to build a fund for in 7 years or 6 years to replace the road. And if you're spending the money that we're putting aside now because it's for today's needs, then where does tomorrow's dollars come from? You got to find it somewhere.
Right, and I think it's important to remind everybody that we have been saving for a long, long time to get the $3 million. So, you know, it's not like we haven't been saving over time. We have been saving over time. That's how we got to $3 million. So if we do this very heavy, inspect the roads twice a year and all this maintenance, and then we're also going to be putting money aside, we also hear a lot from residents that they don't want their taxes increased. So we just had this police, the fire presentation, which there's going to be very significant costs involved with that.
Correct.
Everything's going up. Library's going up.
And most of our
Everything's going
budget
up.
is someone else's dollars that we can't control.
Right. We don't have
We don't have
fat
any
on the bone
discretionary
here.
items in our budget at all.
Right. So we just need to be cognizant of the fact that we hear loud voices from the community also that they don't want their taxes raised. So if we're going to start doing all of this at one time, it's going to be a very significant hit to the community, along with the fire and potentially police next year and the other half of fire plus more for fire next year. So that's kind of why we asked if they could phase us in on fires to get us sort of just past on the roads, just to get us going on the roads. But if we're going to start all this new program and inspections twice a year and all this maintenance and then all this money in a pot, I just want everybody to be aware there's going to be a very significant increase in taxes.
I think we have to say, yes, there are residents with loud voices, but they're also the same ones who are experiencing cost of living increases in their own household and everything else. And living in the village is also a cost of living expense that has to have some increases to cover it. So we're going to have to take some flack from those who are vocal, saying, I don't want anything to go up. It's impossible to live in the village with our increased costs and our increased services and then not to have the taxes go up. It's impossible.
Right, but we've done it for 4 years through extraordinarily hard work.
I don't think it's possible anymore.
I know it's not. I'm just pointing out that there's a lot. I just don't want it on the residents all at one time. Is my thing. I just don't want it to do it all at one time. For 4 years, even through COVID, we worked really, really hard to not increase taxes on the residents. And so I don't think it's fair to turn around then and hit them all at one time. That's all I'm saying. I've been trying to stay out of the roads thing. You guys are handling it. But I just want it in the back of everybody's mind that there's just a lot of very serious consequences to our decisions, and I know everybody knows that, but I just want to say it out loud.
In backing up the roads committee, they really, really understand that.
Right.
It's on everybody's mind is to do we need to go for money, or how can we do it without going for money, or how can we do it with increasing this much or increasing this much. We have the ability to go to 12 mills if we want. We're also still one of the least taxed. Yeah. We're really at the bottom of most. There are a number of communities that are up to 35 mills.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So
But we don't want to be them.
we don't want to be there. No,
And the
believe,
$3 million has to be spread out again
yeah.
over fire and our increased costs and roads, and I've heard so many people that come to us for money and say, well, just increase your mills. You've got 3 mills. It's like, well, everybody wants those 3 mills.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily just want to push up to that because then we don't have any
and that's
wiggle
very
room.
conscious in the roads committee thinking.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, you're all residents.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes a difference.
Can I ask one other thing? I think there was also some conversation about and it was a little vague, I think, but basically how much do you want to spend? Kind of.
That was kind of, yeah.
And I broke it down, at least in terms of my, are we looking for selective rehab? or the longer-term rehab. If you remember from the materials that we got, I know I'm asking people to go on memory, but there were two sets of figures. The first
Yes.
was like selective rehab,
Minimal
And
amount.
12 mil versus 18 mil.
yeah, and then there was, it was a lot more expensive, but obviously the lot more expensive, those repairs should have lasted longer, you know.
Right.
I think one was 15 years and one was 20 years, if my memory serves. Do we have like I mean, we're not, I don't think we're asking them to come up with money for the longer-term rehab program necessarily, are we? I mean,
I think we have to have a philosophy change to build a reserve fund that will take care of the future
right.
more aggressively than we have today. And I think that philosophy change needs to be incorporated sooner than later.
Okay.
So you're looking more at
I mean,
the
the residents
rehab.
have to understand, we can't repair everything now because there's no money.
Yeah.
And we've never had a bank account to speak of. We've got to start building a savings account
Yeah.
in this community.
But we have $2.7 million.
Well,
It's just not
that's-
enough.
That's
I was
not
going to say,
enough.
compared to the cost of the roads.
It's not enough.
Like a drop in the
But
bucket.
I think 20 years ago, people would have thought that that might have been a really good thing. I mean, and that's the hard part is 20 years from now, we might have a goal of $15 million, and 20 years from now, there might be 7 new people sitting around this table saying, what in the world were they thinking? $15 million? That's not even going to scratch the surface.
Yeah.
So it's also, we have to do our due diligence to make sure we're not collecting monies that, towards something that is not going to accomplish that goal, but we're telling people that it will. You know what I mean? Like, we've been collecting what we thought was reasonable for decades. Decades.
But it's not
probably.
reasonable today.
Right.
Right.
It isn't. So just, sorry to keep going back to this, but I just want to have something to tell the people at the committee meeting. We're not as a council saying you have to come up with a plan to do the longer-term rehab, are we?
No.
Okay.
But I think that is one of the things that the committee is certainly looking at.
Right. I mean, they can look at it, but we're not saying you have to have all the plans be the long-term rehab plan, the more expensive plans, right? Am I right? Is that a fair statement? Okay.
Yeah.
And then two other things, if I could just bend your ear for a little bit longer. They did come to sort of like one sort of decision, a temporary, sort of a unless things change decision, and that had to do with the road on Timber Trail that your one constituent has been asking you about, Councilman Howard, and they pretty much voted. They didn't pretty much vote. They voted unanimously that if it's up to them, right now the way they're thinking is to turn that back into a trail
Yeah.
and save
A
like
chunk of money.
$800,000,
$250,000
Easy.
for the
Yeah.
cheaper $1.5 million for the
Road.
for the more expensive road. And I just bring that up because we haven't heard any opposition to doing that yet. If someone listening to this meeting is really like opposed to that plan, they ought to like come to somebody and tell them, because otherwise that's the recommendation of the committee, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure is going to include turning that back into a trail and
So the
saving
fire
that money.
chief and the police chief would be the ones to ask that question.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
our village manager has already done that, and I think
And they're
he
fine
got
with it?
he got good responses
Yep.
from them.
Okay.
So I just wanted to mention that, and then
If there's no safety issues or detriments,
Pardon me?
if there's no safety or detriments to the fire department getting in
No.
there and the police department
No, they
on a trail?
we addressed that. They're good with it,
Yeah.
along with some of the other utilities that have infrastructure along that area.
Well, I think it's a good solution from a financial standpoint as well as functionality.
I do too.
Yeah.
I bet, but I mean, like I hate to go through this entire process and then at the end have some resident, come complain that you didn't give us notice or whatever. So I'm doing it on camera so that anybody
Yeah.
who is listening can like register a complaint now if they think it's a bad idea. I think it's a good idea, but that's just me.
Yeah.
And it's a savings too, which is
Right.
a significant.
Right. And final thing I wanted to just bring from them to the council was there are some members on the committee who are very concerned about whether they're going to be able to have a recommendation by May. And I just raised that because, you know, they're wondering if it can go longer. And I have an opinion on that. But I'm one person on council, and I don't want to just, rule by fiat or whatever. But my opinion is that we definitely need it by when we said in the motion. There are some arguments that, we could just raise the taxes 3 mills and we wouldn't need a vote for that, and therefore, it doesn't have to be done by May. But in reality, I don't think we're going to, if we raise the taxes by 3 mills, they're not going to get 3 mills because some of it's going to go to the fire department, and stuff like that. And I just think that, by pushing it past May, we are in effect making a decision, which is we're not going to put anything on the ballot this year. And I think that's a mistake because
I disagree.
you think it's okay to not put it on the ballot this year.
I think
I have
this
a question
ballot is
about
going to
the
be a
ballot.
disaster.
Well, see, my concern is that, and I could be the only one, but I'm not willing to vote for a 3 mil increase in taxes, have 7 people sit around this table and vote to increase everybody's taxes by 3 mils. I'm not willing to vote for that. I might vote to put it on the ballot, but I'm not willing to decide for 1,100 people that their taxes should go up 33%. And that means if you're not going to do it at a council meeting, then it has to go on the ballot. And if you don't put it on the ballot this year, then that means you're waiting another year.
Or a special election.
Right, but the special
Which is
election would be another
20,000,
year.
25,000,
Yeah.
which may be worth the price of getting something passed, rather than having a negative person go to the polls in November and hate all the choices they don't have to make. Because, the way that it's shaking out.
Now you know what the committee's wrestling with.
Well, I think after
I
this
think-
Wednesday meeting, they're going to have some other options where they can look at a 1 mil increase, a 2 mil increase, an SIB loan, and the interest is like 2%.
To something,
Yeah.
typically it's to
So, there are some other options that I think are going to be discussed. You mentioned there are several proposals that are going to be presented.
Right.
So it's Wednesday night, 6:30.
Or you can watch it
Oh, you're going to
online.
be in, I'm sorry, she's going back to Florida.
No, you can watch it
Yeah.
after the fact.
Zoom, you can Zoom.
Well, you can just watch it after the
Yeah,
fact.
I'm
so.
teasing you. But a question I have for clarity, if it's if it's a millage increase not designated for a certain fund, and it's 3 or less, it doesn't have to be voted on. If you're going to specify 1 mil to go to a road fund, does that have to go through an election?
If you...
You don't have to answer tonight.
No, I can answer the question, it's just kind of, so you have some cap room to play with, right? You could raise the millage rate,
To 3.
a mill.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
1 mill.
Okay.
And with the intention of putting that money into the road fund, but it doesn't have to be put in that fund.
But if you wanted it, if that's what we're presenting to our residents, that this is for, it's not even just a road, it's like the infrastructure fund, but I guess at this point,
You could call it
road,
that.
yeah, that this will be dedicated to making sure that our future is secure, because we will be funding it annually. This is how much it's going to generate, along with a small business thing. And even if you were to do it, like there's where it's, I know the loans were paid off in was it 12 years? And anyway,
I don't know what you're referring to when you're talking about.
the small SIB loan, you're familiar.
Yeah, I have all the paperwork. It's a specific, they set, the committee that for SIB sets the term and structure of it.
Okay, yeah. But it was an option for payment, where you keep a millage increase down to 1 mil. But
You're incurring debt, though, by doing that.
You
but
are.
it's paid off.
Well, you are
Yeah.
incurring debt if you were to go the SIB route. I
Right.
just want to make that clear.
Exactly.
Okay.
But it's not 750,000 a year. I think it was 7,500, and it was 12 years.
Okay.
So, yeah, but finance is not my thing. I'm not a numbers gal, so the guys on the committee are far more versed, as is Bill. But I think that if you're going to designate it for a particular expense, it does have to be voted on by residents.
If you want to create a certain kind of millage, this is what communities do all the time, a public safety millage, a
Yep.
fire millage,
School.
a library millage,
Yeah.
you would basically you have a finance element to it, and you pick the number, whether it's a mill or a half a mill or whatever it might be, and you put it on the ballot, and the money that's collected is dedicated to that fund.
Right.
That's all it could go to. Short of that, you could simply just raise the millage, just 1, 2, 3, well, maybe not 3 now, but 1 or 2 or 2.5, and collect those dollars and tell the community, yes, we are putting that money in a road fund. But something might come up. It doesn't have to go on a road fund. There's different ways to slice this, and I'm not saying that one way is better than the other way. But if you're going to if you're going to go to the voters, that would have to be spelled out and it's done pretty specifically and put on a ballot to be determined and voted on, whether it's a half a mill or 1 mill or 2 mills or whatever it might be. I know you're not comfortable with that, with just raising it without going to the voters and
Right.
people. I think other people might have different opinions.
Right, they might.
Okay.
I wouldn't be comfortable just raising it like that without asking the voters either.
But
Never
if we
done
ask the
anything like
voters, we
that.
really need to explain it in great detail. And I don't know that all that information in conjunction with all the other stuff going on for the November ballot is the right time and way to do it. I'm getting barrage now with, every other text message is from another political candidate.
Yeah.
Just
Right,
horrific.
but next year we might have other things that we're gonna,
Well, I mean,
we're
but
gonna need to have a millage on, so that's gonna be a problem as well.
Yeah, we
have
know
to
police
think.
and fire are going up, so.
Right.
if one mill is, if it's a 2 mill increase on the ballot, one is restricted for the roads and the other is for operating expenses and services.
That would be 2 separate millage questions
Yes.
on a ballot. That would be 2 separate ballot proposals. One for this and one for that. That would be 2 separate things. If they were equal numbers, that's one thing. If they're weighted differently, like one's a half a mill and one's a mill, presented to a community that's never had this on a ballot before, I can imagine that one would pass and one would not. That would be my assumption.
But I think we need to educate our residents on what the issues are. We cannot
I say this
not pay the
with-
increase for fire and
I
police.
say this with the idea that there
Yeah.
would be some education element involved. with
Yes,
it.
there'd have to be.
Of course there would, but this body could not take a position. Body could put out an information piece, but this body can't advocate for a millage increase.
Well,
There's a
the
fine line to
problem is,
cross.
if we don't have a millage increase, can we pay the increase in fire? Do we have those reserves available to pay the increase?
Well,
Well, I think we're getting off the
Yeah.
Yeah.
road
roads.
project, but I mean, we could, if the budget committee comes back and says we need to go from 9 mills to 9.2 mills, we could do that.
Bill, what's 1 mill worth?
About 200,000.
200,000?
So I mean,
That's
it's
crazy.
possible to do that. Now, if
It
the,
is.
if the road proposal comes back and says we have to go all the way to 12 mills, okay, then the next time the fire department or the police department or somebody comes to us, we can't raise it anymore without going to the voters. So I mean,
Yeah.
that like limits our for the future council's ability to act a lot. Okay, so I want to move it back around to this last thing, and I understand you have some concerns about whether we're actually going to put something on the ballot this November. But don't we at least want to tell them that we at least want their report by May as we originally planned on? We don't have to decide whether it goes on the ballot in November or not, but if we don't get it by May, then it's not going to go on the ballot. Right? I mean, if we don't get it...
Will that influence the quality of the research that they will do to meet our timeline? That's my concern. If they're going to take shortcuts and just say, we've got to meet a deadline, we give them something.
This crew is not going to take a shortcut. Not the way I see them functioning so far.
And do you think this crew can meet the May deadline then?
They can give you something. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet.
They're part of the crew. Keep that in mind. So
I know.
You know, yeah.
Because some of the ideas might be, we don't have to go. We don't know all the 3 to 5 or how many scenarios we're going to give to this board. As I've said originally, one of the scenarios could be, we don't do anything. We just take the $150 or the $150,000 we have every year, and we just fix the roads as we go.
Yeah.
That's, you don't have to go anywhere for that. You could go all the way up to, we could take out a bond for $10 million, which would cost the village basically 20 or 15 million overall. That's probably not going to happen. I don't know for sure. We haven't voted on that. But those are the two extreme scenarios. We've got a couple of things coming in that are going to be discussed this week. I think in what I've quickly gone over some of them, wow, that's some good stuff.
Maybe back to the committee, say, do your best. If you can't give us 5, I think we asked for 5 scenarios.
3 to 5.
3 to 5.
3 to 5. We want the minimum of 3, hoping that you can get a little better, but at least try for the 3 and let us know if there's something else that you really want to consider in greater depth. And then let it be our problem to decide whether or not to pursue the road commission following up on that. And we've got to give them a chance. And rather than cutting them short, saying, this is your deadline.
Except we're not really cutting them short. I mean, we this is the charter for them is to come back to us by May.
But we just came up with a date. They're coming up with information, and they're saying that information needs to be a little more extensively delved into.
Right. We came up with a date, not just by picking it out of the air. We came up with a date with the intention of if we
need to put something on the ballot, yeah.
We have to have it by that.
Well, there's 2 deadlines in a sense. One is in June you have to approve your budget for the year, right? And that kicks in July 1st. So backing that up, the proposals due in May so that this council can make a decision at its May meeting if there's to be an increase without going to the voters of some mills. The other deadline is for ballot language that is due in August. So those are your two deadlines, and that's initially why they came up with the May.
I think so.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure.
Excuse me. We have somebody speaking.
So that's, if there's any question on that, I mean, those are the 2 options, and I would imagine that one of the alternatives would include simply having a millage increase done by this body with your budget for 24-25. Another option would be a ballot proposal that would be put on the ballot for November. Now, that's how I see it. I could be wrong. They could come up with different ideas altogether. That's how I look at it. Getting back to the rating concept, this is what tell me if I'm wrong. right now, most of the roads are between 4 and 6.
No, 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
3 and 4.
Yeah.
And you want to get them, so that's the average off the map, 3 to 4,
Correct.
between 3 and 4. And the idea is that to get the average, I guess it's 5, because I have 4 to 6 written here. That's the idea, to get to 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
So you can relay that back to the roads committee.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that our goal is 5. Was there something else? I'm sorry. Something else that they wanted us to discuss
Well,
tonight?
I think we've discussed everything. I had everything.
Yeah.
That's
Do you have
everything I
answers
had
to
on my-
everything?
I think we have answers to everything.
Okay.
Yeah, that covers what I had, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. We'll move to the treasurer's report. Bill?
Thank you, President Blackburn. Well, we're on the topic of money and funds. We'll just continue along with that for the 2 motions that council sees every month from me. First one is to approve the March 2024 bills. In your packet, we have reports that show check disbursement from the general fund from February 23rd, 2024, to March 21st, 2024, totaled $160,089.82. From the gas and weight fund for the same dates, February 23rd, 2024 through March 21st, 2024, total was dispersed of $2,210 for a grand total of those 2 funds of $162,299.82. So that's the first motion that's in front of you for the bills. And if there's any questions, I'd be, as always, happy to answer them.
Is there a motion to approve the bills for 2024 March?
I motion to approve the March bills.
Second?
I'll support. Go ahead.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, the second motion, thank you, that we have in front of us is to accept the financial statements for February 2024. Also in your packet, as I go through every month, provided for you the financial statement. And if we look at, we're now in the 8th month, or 67% through the fiscal year. Our total expenditures are tracking well, actually they're a little bit less. They're almost 1% less than where we were the same time last year. We're at 62.13% of the budget. Last year we were at 63.2%. So again, we're tracking just as we normally are at an 8-month period into the fiscal year. And so that's that portion. On the investment side, I've also detailed for you, as I have every month, between the general fund and the road funds. There really hasn't been very much change. We had a couple of investments that expired or came to maturity, and one was replaced, and that's in the general fund, and now rolls out into January 31st of 2025. But what I'm seeing is rates are still staying relatively same. They are still ticking down a bit, but I still don't think that we have the full effect of what we may see in the future. So again, my take in what I'm trying to do is make sure that we position ourselves for some longer term, some shorter term, to try and take advantage of the current rates at the higher rate that we're at now, and still maintaining, the balances per our investment policy. And I'd be glad to ask or answer any questions that you have regarding the investment sheet.
Your rates are really nice. Yeah, all those 5s are.
I agree, the rates look really good to me. I just had one question on the expenditures. Everything looks really good. They're all like real close to, 66%, except for insurance benefits, which is 162%. What is that?
I'm glad you asked. You know, you have a very keen eye, Trustee Jones. The answer to that question is very easy. It is the $30,000 that we funded MERS for that, and I have to do the budget amendment.
That's my fault, is what you're telling me.
Actually, Trustee Jones, you made the motion. I went back, to answer your question seriously, I went back and looked at it. That's exactly where Colleen put it in that fund. I talked to Rena, and what she said was, we will do the budget amendment when we get closer to the end of the year.
Thanks.
To balance things that are over. But that is the one that did stick out. So I have it marked as a matter of fact, 162.74%.
Is there a motion to accept the financial statements for February 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you so much for all your work, Bill.
Yeah, and I apologize, I should have pointed that out, but I just wanted to see whether or not Trustee Jones is as efficient as he always is.
We are on to trustee comments. Trustee Hedge, I'm always
I
good.
just wanted to say I appreciate the fire and the police with all that they do for us. They've been in our neighborhood quite a bit, so,
Okay.
and I know Tony worked hard from going to the meeting a week ago, Monday night. They all worked really hard on that budget, and anyway, they do a good job.
I second that. And I'm especially appreciative on this home watch. I get on my Ring camera every other day, and the frequency with which they make these house checks is amazing. And because of these house checks, I'm having a different lock system put in. Because I just had a regular lock. You could put a credit card through it and open it up, and now I'm having a deadbolt installed, so it's very good. Thank you. Thank you.
They are very good.
Appreciate your comments for us for the Road Advisory Committee.
Yeah, I just want to make a final comment. The issue is going to be resolved next week at the Planning Commission meeting. And it has to do with the Design Review Board. And I thoroughly get that there were members that extended their authority and made residents somewhat uncomfortable with it. But what's concerning to me is the night of April 22nd, when asked why it had to be done, I was told it was because of legal difficulties. And I remember getting up and asking our attorney, and he said, well, I can't discuss it because of client-attorney privilege. And which, of course, you can't argue with, except that there was no legal difficulty at that time. And it's concerning, it's disappointing, and I'd like to see that not happen again. If you want to disband it, then do so. You have the vote, and that's fine. But I think it's important that we be accurate. And quite honestly, anybody can sue the village at any time on any issue. I mean, because we don't have a DRB doesn't mean nobody's going to sue us. So, I think right now I'm just seeing a lot of activity in the village that has, and for whatever reason, and it may not even be related to this, but is going unchecked. We've had 4 signs in front of the new house being constructed. And I think, what is our limit? How many signs are we allowed to have in front of a house?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was writing down some of your thoughts. For sale sign or trespassing sign, some of those signs were removed, I believe.
No, they're still all there.
I'm
All
glad you
there.
bring up the sign issue. That's the thing on my agenda. There's an issue with free speech anymore with signs. So that's a fine line we have to walk right now as well. And this is not the time. Trustee comments is not the time to bring this kind of thing up. But I've said it and I'm going to say it again. The DRB was not disbanded because of legal issues with people suing the village who were building new homes.
yes, there were incidents where people did approach the village and were upset and threatened the village. That's not why this is happening. It's happening because the Design Review Board was not a legal entity. So when somebody says something about it, I think the word legal is getting confused. The DRB is not a legal entity. It has nothing to do with anybody fearing that the village was going to get sued by somebody. So I've said it before, I've said it again, please stop
Can I
saying that.
finish? Let me finish. That was the reason that Dirk gave, and 3 of the trustees at the vote said, our attorney has spoken, he has given us his advice, and we're going to honor that, and we're going to vote that we want to disband it. So that's what I'm saying. And, yeah, that's it. All done.
There were multiple reasons. None of us want to get sued, but that is not the reason why the DRB is disbanded. It's disbanded because the
It is in our
DRB
charter.
is not a legal entity anymore.
I'll put my 2 cents worth, I guess. I wouldn't say quite the way Lisa did, but we've had 3 different attorneys now, all from the same firm, but 3 different attorneys who have told us that the way our statute reads for the DRB, it exceeds the authority of the village to have that. It exceeds the authority of the village to have a committee that that makes decisions based on discretionary type activities. It's not one attorney, it's 3 attorneys have given us opinions saying that legally we can't have a board like that. That we can't have a board that has those kind of powers. And as Lisa said, I mean, some people think it's just because we think we're going to get sued. That's not it. That's not it. I mean, I go back to my civics class back in 12th grade, and they used to teach me that government has limited authority. That's the whole point of our
Yeah.
system.
Yeah,
And
Kurt,
if our-
I don't mind
I'm
it.
talking now.
Yeah,
I'm
but
talking
I'm
now. It's my
agreeing
time.
with you.
Okay.
I'm agreeing with you.
So if we can't have a board that stays within the scope of what the village is allowed to do, then we just can't have it. And for us to exceed that authority sends a message to people that, well, it's okay if the board exceeds the authority, but you, as a resident, you have to follow 200 pages of ordinances that we have. You shouldn't do that. I mean, if this board doesn't have the authority, if this council doesn't have the authority to have a commission like this, to have a board like that, then we shouldn't do it, whether we're going to get sued or not. We just shouldn't do something that we don't have the authority to do. And that's why it was the vote was taken to do what we did. So on another matter, I wish the budget committee really good luck this time. We've had like 4 years in a row that we haven't had to raise taxes, and in my last year of my term, I would hate to see that streak end. But this fire department's budget, if you look at $128,000 increase in their budget, half of which is us, that's $64,000.
Right.
And if that's 0.3 of a mil. So there may be some ways that we can,
Make it doable.
maybe some ways that we can cut in other areas, or I think that we might get some money back from the police department next quarter, like $8,000 or something. We might be able to slow down the contribution rate to the pension fund or something like that. But I'm hoping, good luck to you guys, and I hope you can bring us a budget that doesn't require an increase. But I'm going to be really pleased and surprised if you do.
I have no further comment. Oh, sorry. Vote.
Oh,
A move to adjourn.
So move.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Hoorah.
Kurt?